The following program is a color feature presentation on the Hughes Sports Network.
Take it in, baby! Come on, Bobby, hit somebody! Hurry! Come on, let's go! Let's go! Get on the ground! Stick him! Come on, now, get him back! We gotta have it back! Make it go! Make it go! That's what he's saying! All right, Henry! Take it in! Take it in! Well, time! Well, time!
This Week in Pro Football is brought to you by Hager, the Slacks people. We make everybody look good. And by the 1972 Buick, something to believe in.
Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. Although it's getting to be pretty late in the NFL season, last week seemed to be a week of firsts.
That's true, Pat. Last week, three of the greatest quarterbacks in pro football history got their first real chance of the season. Sonny Jurgensen and Bart Starr started their first games, and Joe Namath almost worked one of those old-fashioned miracles for the New York Jets.
Other firsts included the first shutout ever for the Cincinnati Bengals, and at long last, the first win of the season for the Buffalo Bills.
Well, they finally got it, huh? Also, Pittsburgh lost at home for the first time this year, and Oakland lost their first game since the opening week. So with just 3 weeks to go, over half of the NFL's 26 teams are still in the race for the Super Bowl.
We'll be back to show you all the best of last week's pro football action right after this message.
On Thanksgiving Day, the Dallas Cowboys were almost stuffed by the Los Angeles Rams, who thought they'd found a team ripe for the plucking. Well, Pat, Ed Kayat and George Allen are two men with similar responsibilities but very different positions. While Kayat tiptoes the tightrope of an interim head coach, George Allen has been ensconced as a real fixture down on the Washington pro football scene.
Tom, perhaps it's an interesting irony of their profession that in 2 meetings, the Redskins and the Eagles are separated by only 1 touchdown.
Last Sunday, George Allen and Ed the Hatchet Kayat again stalked the sidelines. After a previous 7-7 tie, it behooved Allen to exhort his hopefuls to greater measures. Consequently, the innovative Allen introduced the Invisible Man defense, and the enraged Invisible One soon had the better of Pete Lisk. But for the most part, the Redskins' defense was quite real, and often in the person of number 32, Jack Pardee. Number 41, Mike Bass of the defense, made the game-winning play with his interception and 38-yard return for a touchdown. The Eagles' biggest offensive play came when number 9, Billy Wallach, returned a Mike Bragg punt 50 yards. Wallach's return served to showcase Pete Lisk's unique quarterbacking style. With the invisible one draped all over him from the seat of his pants, Lisk found young Steve Zabel in the end zone. But it was too little and it was too late. In an attempt to refuel the sputtering Redskin offense, Sonny Jurgensen made his first start of the season. But a crushing blow from the mad Yugoslavian Tim Rosovic, number 82, sent Jurgensen from the game. Billy Kilmer replaced Jurgensen and sparked the Redskin air game. This one to Clifton McNeil. Quarterback Kilmer managed the only touchdown by the Washington offense when he teamed with number 80 Roy Jefferson on a 37-yard throw and go. The Skins won 20-13, preserving their hopes for an NFC playoff spot.
The Pittsburgh Steelers got into an interesting habit of winning every game at home and losing every game away. The Denver Broncos, meanwhile, had the habit of losing almost everywhere. Last Sunday in Pittsburgh, the Steelers and the Broncos combined their habits and came up with an interesting and unexpected happening.
At Three Rivers Stadium this year, the Steelers were undefeated. But against Denver, the Steelers were unable to reach win number 6. The fourth quarter safety was but one of the Steelers' errors. Although some worked out to their advantage, the Bronco defense, though ravaged by injury, was just too much for both Terry Bradshaw, number 12, and Terry Hanratty, number 5. With All-Pro Rich Jackson out for the season, Paul Smith, number 70, has taken over as quarterback tormentor number 1. The play of Smith and his line mates held the Steelers to 1 touchdown. Following a fumble recovery, a pass from Terry Hanratty to Preston Pearson put the Steelers on the board. But while the Steelers were having their moments, Denver's Floyd Little was having his day. In again accounting for well over 100 yards in total offense, Floyd looked as good as he has all season. And that's not bad considering he's among the top rushers in the AFC. But sometimes it's what you don't see that's important. When Coach Lou Saban stepped aside 2 weeks ago, Floyd was visibly shaken by Denver's season-long season of misfortunes. He was also pondering retiring. On Sunday, however, it was the Steelers who were visibly shaken. Floyd scored twice, leaving stunned defenders in his wake, and Denver woke up to club Pittsburgh 22-10.
There is no doubt that Pittsburgh really needed that game, and when it was over, I'll bet they were upset in more ways than one.
That's for sure. Well, they weren't the only people to be upset, though. In Green Bay, the Saints laid one on the Packers. And you know, it's getting so that eventually a New Orleans win won't be considered an upset.
The meat was in the fire in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Packer fans were happy because the meat was thick. The easy Saints were in town, the Pack was favored, and best of all, Bart Starr was back. The wise old field general had been out all season, and his return was sure to spark a renaissance. But the Saints are a hungry young ball club, and to them, Bart Starr was nothing more than the main course. 6 times New Orleans' hustling defense forced Green Bay turnovers, and 5 times Charlie Durkee kicked field goals for the Saints. Starr's only measure of success came on this pass to number 81, Rich McGeorge, whose catch and run set up a touchdown by number 44, Donnie Anderson. But the Saints' lead ballooned to 19-7 as quarterback Ed Hargett coolly picked apart the Packer defense. Running back Bob Gresham, number 35, was the big gainer in a drive which led to a 1-yard touchdown plunge. Only New Orleans wide receiver Bob Newland, number 41, seemed capable of stopping the Saints, and his not quite perfect block on Packer linebacker Jim Carter was the only thing that kept Gresham from going all the way. But nothing could keep number 25, Dave Hampton, from going all the way. Hampton's 90-yard touchdown brought the Packers to within 8 points at 22-14. And things began to go the Green Bay way when a Hargett to Dan Abramowitz touchdown pass was called back for holding. But the Saints have spent many lean years, and in their hunger this year, they don't let the close ones slip away. Late in the fourth quarter, Scott Hunter's pass was picked off by number 23, Doug Wyatt, who went 55 yards for the score. And so Green Bay's third quarterback of the afternoon, Zeke Bratkowski, took over. But his 60-yard pass and run to Rich McGeorge was too little meat too late in the day as New Orleans went on to win the fourth of the season, 29-21.
We'll have more exciting action on This Week in Pro Football right after this brief message. When the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Oilers tangled last week, the sports world did not exactly go limp in breathless anticipation.
Neither the Oilers nor the Browns have given their fans much to be thankful for. Still, with 5 victories, Cleveland, a co-leader in the AFC Central Division, had hopes for 6 victories and dreams of conquest. And Oilers versus Browns turned out to be a sharp physical test. Both teams brought their helmets and shoulder pads, and both teams came out hitting and causing turnovers, 9 in all. Number 29, Ken Houston, intercepted 2 balls. This one setting up a Houston touchdown. On the next play, a halfback pass from Woody Campbell to Charlie Joyner. The Oilers went out in front. Later, Joyner took another pass, a 55-yard bomb, and what Houston fans hope will become a classic pro combo, Pastorini to Joyner. But last Sunday, it was not enough. In a game that exploded from a defensive struggle to an offensive show, the Browns won by consistency. The medium-range passing of Bill Nelson loosened the Oilers' grip. Frank Pitts caught a Nelson touchdown pass, and Leroy Kelly and Bo Scott did the rest. Leroy Kelly gained more than 100 yards for the 25th time in his career, becoming the NFL's 6th leading ground gainer, surpassing Rick Caceres and Steve Van Buren. And Cleveland outscored Houston 37-24.
Well, Cleveland seems to have found themselves after their almost disastrous midseason slump.
But they are not out of the woods yet, because over in Cincinnati, the Bengals have not only found their teeth, they've also started to bite.
It was a lean year for Bengal fans until 3 weeks ago, but through it all, they kept smiling. The cause of their problem has been the quarterback position, where they've tried everything and been thwarted by injuries. But when they said hello again to a healthy Virgil Carter, the Cincinnati season turned around. The Bengals once again became the Tigers of old. And the Chargers paid early, as Carter's first drives of the day led to a 21-0 Bengal lead. If it wasn't Carter to number 84 Bob Trumpy, it was running back Fred Willis, number 33, up the middle and through a hole that made you want to go forever. But the real heroes of the day were the Bengals defenders, who led the way in a 31-0 conquest, which was the first Bengals shutout in history. Six times they picked off San Diego passes. Number 58, Al Beauchamp, came up with two and a pretty good spike to boot. It was only fitting that the defense capped their success with a score as Beauchamp put it all together. Good theft, good run, and a great spike. It made one think of last year when Cincinnati won their division after losing 6 straight. Can they do it again? If you happen to be an Elephant, a Bengal fan, or both, you'll never forget how.
We'll be right back to This Week in Pro Football following station identification. This is the Hughes Sports Network. In the second half of our show, we'll be seeing an event that's been a long time in coming, Buffalo's first win. And another event that's been a long time in coming, too, the destruction of the Oakland Raiders on their own turf.
Pat, we'll also see the Detroit team wallop the Chiefs and the Vikings whip the Falcons to keep the NFC Central a tight race.
And we'll see the Underbirds from St. Louis finally get off the ground against the Giants. And also in New York, we'll see the return of the King as New York City's boyfriend is back, which means, of course, a lot of the Jets' opponents are going to be in trouble.
Broadway Joe's still throwing it good, huh?
And very well.
And on our feature, it's called Don't Quit. And I'm sure it has to be produced by George Blanda.
We'll see that feature, and we'll have more exciting action on This Week in Pro Football right after this brief message.
If you think you've got troubles, take a look at this week's feature. It may give you a whole new slant on things.
The Buffalo Bills are living proof of the poem, "Don't Quit." Going into their game with New England last week, the Bills had lost 15 straight over a 2-year period and 10 straight this year, but Buffalo refused to give up, and their efforts finally brought results.
In Buffalo, it finally happened. The Bills won a football game after 15 straight losses. Buffalo just has too much talent to keep on losing. Against New England, number 32, O.J. Simpson, again displayed his flashy footwork. But the big difference was the return of number 1 draft choice J.D. Hill, number 40. Hill had been sidelined all season long with a knee injury, but his recovery gave Buffalo the long-distance threat they sorely needed. Two touchdowns by the Arizona State rookie plus a field goal gave the fired-up Bills a 17-6 halftime lead. But the Patriots are the last team Buffalo beat before heading into their 15-game tailspin. And New England was determined not to be Buffalo's first victim of the year. The running of Carl Garrett, number 30, and powerful Jim Nance, number 35, led the Patriots' effort. New England added another touchdown on a fourth quarter pass from number 16 Jim Plunkett to number 34 Ron Sellers. But the Patriots could never overtake the rampaging Bills. Smelling a victory, the hungry Buffalo defense kept the pressure on Plunkett. And the Bills' persistence produced results like this theft by number 20, Robert James. A touchdown by O.J. Simpson and another field goal by John Laypole capped Buffalo's first victory of the year. All the misery and frustration finally came to an end as Buffalo defeated New England 27-20.
Well, we've seen an improving Buffalo team that, despite winning a game, still remains in last place in the AFC East.
And Pat, now that we've seen a battle between the bottom teams in the AFC East, let's take a look at one of the top teams. The Baltimore Colts lost to Miami 2 weeks ago, but against Oakland last week, the Colts just couldn't have played much better. The Colts are trying to keep their championship hopes alive until the rematch with the Dolphins. And last Sunday's victory over the Raiders was certainly impressive.
In Oakland, California, two pro football powers collided as the Raiders met the Baltimore Colts. The Colts were still smarting from a loss to Miami, but Coach Don McCafferty has been encouraged by the continued improvement of John Unitas. Unitas and number 36, Norm Boulash, led the Colts to the game's first score. In the first half alone, the powerful Boulash rumbled for 82 yards. Boulash's running set up the second Baltimore touchdown, a 10-yard smash by number 41, Tom Matty, and the Colts were off and running. Oakland tried to rally behind Darryl LaMonica's arm, but the Raiders were puzzled by the Colts' zone defense and were held to -1 yard passing in the first half. Interceptions like this one by number 21, Rick Volk, set up field goals by Jim O'Brien that ballooned the score to 30-0. The Raiders were frustrated as LaMonica rarely was able to penetrate the tough Baltimore defense. Oakland coach John Madden searched for a way to beat the Colts' sticky zone coverage, but the usually accurate Raider passing attack was intercepted 6 times. Oakland needed a miracle to win, and so trailing by 30 points, they summoned the miracle worker himself, Old George. Number 16, George Blanda, finally got Oakland moving in the 4th quarter, as he twice connected with number 25, Fred Biletnikoff, for touchdown. Although he rallied the Raiders, George Blanda's magic wasn't enough to overcome an awesome Baltimore attack. Tough defense, the steadying hand of old pro John Unitas, and the devastating running of young Norm Bulash led the wave that washed Oakland away 37-14. The victory kept the Colts' playoff hopes alive as they marked time until a rematch with the Miami Dolphins.
There's an old NFL tradition which guarantees that at noon on every Thanksgiving Day, someone must be thrown into the Lions' Den, better known as Tiger Stadium, Detroit. Last week, that dubious honor was bestowed upon the Kansas City Chiefs.
On a beautiful Thanksgiving Day in Detroit, both the second-place Lions and the second-place Kansas City Chiefs battled to keep from falling too dangerously far behind in the race for the postseason playoffs. Hank Stram's bag of offensive tricks led to 3 touchdown bursts by Ed Podolak, number 14. Despite Podolak's 3 touchdowns, too often the Chiefs seemed destined to play the Thanksgiving Day role of wooden Indians. In the early part of the game, Detroit quarterback Greg Landry, the NFC's leading passer, also had his problems as he tried to solve the Chiefs' rugged defense. As usual, the Chiefs' front four was busting in hard. And as usual, the Kansas City defensive backs and linebackers were doing their part in sealing off the alleys. But after the initial frustrations were finished with, Greg Landry began to look for his all-pro tight end, Charlie Sanders, number 88. Landry found that Sanders can also catch the ball when it is only slightly overthrown. Landry also knows that Sanders saves his very best catches for the end zone, and it doesn't matter how tightly he's covered. With the help of his acrobatic friends, Greg Landry added to his conference-leading statistics with 15 completions in 22 tries and a second touchdown to Earl McCullough. The crowning blow was struck by the league-leading kickoff returner, Ron Jesse, number 89, when he blocked a Gerald Wilson punt, resulting in a 2-point safety for the Lions. The humiliated Chiefs remained 1/2 game behind Oakland in the AFC West, while victorious Detroit was still 1.5 behind Minnesota in the NFC Central.
That NFC Central Division certainly has some of the toughest characters around, Pat.
You're right, Tom, and in Minnesota, that just covers the fans.
Do not call your neighbors or relatives. This isn't the beginning of Dr. Zhivago. It's Bloomington, Minnesota, where the weather is considered part of the Vikings' defense. Minnesota winters have a habit of putting Viking fans in unusual moods. For example, what better setting could you imagine for a cookout? But while the Minnesota fans were roasting their weenies, the Vikings were picking Atlanta's Berry, quarterback Bob Berry to be exact, as the Falcons were held to a total of 4 first downs. It has been said that quarterbacks rarely see a pass completion, but playing against the Vikings, it can get out of hand. When Berry completed even a short pass, the receivers were welcomed in the same way. What was impressive about the Vikings' performance was that it came against one of the hottest teams in football, a team that had won 4 of their last 5 games. The Falcons were able to climb out of the hole only once. Harmon Wage's fumble was picked up by tight end Jim Mitchell, number 86. The 55-yard run produced the only Atlanta points of the day. All other offense was accomplished by Minnesota's fine core of running backs. It wasn't always easy, but Clint Jones, number 26, has the relentless drive of a Minnesota blizzard. Watch the top of the screen as Jones, hopelessly pinned in, breaks free for 73 yards, the longest touchdown run of the year. When Jones wasn't thrashing through the Falcons, it was Bill Brown. Brown, an all-time Viking favorite, had a 23-yard touchdown run and made it Vikings 17-7. And he earned a standing ovation from the crowd and his teammates. The last Viking score was more of the same. Jones skipping and darting up the middle, and Brown slanting for his second score. The 24-7 win was a good one for the Vikings, but a great one for Bill Brown, who came back from the Siberia of pro football, the bench, and showed everybody that he still had it.
2 weeks ago, the St. Louis Cardinals were humiliated by the Philadelphia Eagles. But last Sunday, it was the Cardinals' turn to be the tormentors, and the New York Giants felt their wrath. Before last week, the Giants had beaten the Cardinals 4 straight times, so I guess they were due to lose.
In Yankee Stadium, the Cardinals gave a sound pasting to the New York fumbling Giants. Within 8 minutes of the first quarter, New York committed 3 turnovers, which led to a fast 17-0 Cardinal lead. The first Cardinal touchdown resulted from a perfect pass from Jim Hart to John Gilliam. Trailing 10-0, Fran Tarkington threw his 3rd interception of the initial quarter, and linebacker Larry Stallings angled to the flag for an easy score. Behind 17-0, the shell-shocked Giants defense began to overpower both blockers and ball carriers. Then Scott Eaton, number 20, stole Jim Hart's pass out of the hands of Jim McFarland to set up New York's only touchdown of the game. Tarkington caught the Cardinals with a quick count. He also caught Bob Tucker in full stride within the crease of the St. Louis zone. Tucker smartly exited stage left, but should have kept right on running because the Cardinals' old hand Larry Wilson, number 8, never allowed Fran to turn another trick. Two Jim Hart passes ensured the St. Louis victory. The first was arched to quick-stepping Mel Gray, number 85. The second was a quick out to John Gilliam, who turned the simple pattern into an artistic touchdown. The Cardinals' 24-7 victory was only their 4th of the year, and little solace for a team reputed to be a bona fide contender in the NFC East.
Those fans in Yankee Stadium were not well pleased last week, Tom, to say the least.
Well, Pat, a few miles to the east, out in Flushing, Long Island, the Shea Stadium faithful witnessed a sports spectacle that none of them will ever forget.
A standing room only crowd jammed Shea Stadium last week for a happening. When San Francisco's John Brody passed to Gene Washington at the end of the first quarter, it marked the only connection of the day for this dynamic duo. But it didn't seem to matter because another Washington, Vic, number 22, continued the 49er thrust to the end zone. The 49ers were well on their way to breaking their 2-game losing spell and regaining first place in the NFC West. For the 7th straight game, Bob Davis was at quarterback for the Jets. But on this day, he would complete only one ill-fated pass. Bob Davis, the 3rd-string quarterback who had surprisingly taken over a half a season earlier, was forced to leave the game in pain, while the man currently listed as the number 3 Jet quarterback was called upon to make his first appearance since a season and a half, and a broken wrist and another surgically mended knee. And now it was up to Joe Namath to show the world that he still had the magic. Namath's first 2 passes bounced harmlessly on the grass. And there again was the question, was the magic still there? Probably even Namath himself didn't know. Then on his next series and his 3rd official pass attempt of the season, Namath hit Emerson Boozer for 28 yards. Next, Namath tried to hit Rich Castor at the left sideline, but Bruce Taylor stepped up, grabbed the ball, and dashed all the way to the Jets' 2-yard line. From the 2, the San Francisco offense failed, and the 49ers had to settle for a field goal and a 10-0 lead. On the next New York series, Namath completed 2 of 2 for 42 yards. But from the San Francisco 1-yard line, rookie running back Steve Harkey fumbled into the end zone, and only Jimmy Johnson's injured arm painfully prevented a New York touchdown. In the second half, Ken Willard immediately got the 49ers rolling again. In all, Willard ran for 129 yards, while his running mate, Vic Washington, accumulated 125. And then there was that third speedy runner in the San Francisco backfield. John Brody's touchdown put the 49ers comfortably ahead, 17-0, early in the third period. Then suddenly, like lightning from the winter sky, came the old Namath magic. Rich Castor's 57-yard touchdown made the score 17-7. And there it remained until early in the fourth quarter, when John Brody found Vic Washington all alone, and suddenly the game seemed over at 24-7. Brody completed only 5 passes in the game, but they seemed to be more than enough, especially with the NFC's top-ranked defense now free to storm into Namath's pass pocket on every play. But despite the pressure, once again, Namath found Rich Castor heading for the end zone, and the Jets were closer at 24-14. Just 6 plays later, following a blocked punt, Namath again went for the big one. This time to little Eddie Bell, number 7. Suddenly, the Jets were within 3 points, and Super Sunday didn't seem so far away. With less than 2 minutes to play, the Jets got the ball for the last time, and again, Namath went for Bell. In the game's final minute, Namath threw 5 more passes, at least one of which came about as close as humanly possible to the winning touchdown. With only 16 seconds to play, Namath had a 3rd and 10 at the San Francisco 19. He chose to throw again for Ed Bell in the end zone. Johnny Fuller, playing in the middle of the 49ers' deep zone defense, had ended the last New York threat and had preserved the San Francisco victory for first place in the NFC West. But the name everyone was repeating over and over was not Johnny Fuller or Ken Willard or Vic or Gene Washington or even John Brody. It was Joe, for Joe was back, and the magic was there again.
Well, Joe Willie Whiteshoes really had them breathing hard up in New York last week, but what a great comeback. He's really a great QB, isn't he?
One of the best I've ever seen, without doubt.
What about your closing run now? I'm 14-8, and if you're going to get momentum, as they say, you better start moving it, Pat.
Got to make a move. I'm going to have to start picking more games or something if I'm going to catch you.
What about this week, though? You got Cincinnati at Cleveland.
Well, I thought the Browns had lost it for a while. They experimented, you might recall, with Mike Phipps. That didn't work out. They went back to Bill Nelson. Since then, they seem to be back on the right track. Still, Cincinnati, with Virgil Carter back, has turned into a fine football team. I'll go with the Bengals.
Well, you know, John Hadel said something. He called the Bengals the best coach team that they'd played all year. So if you stop San Diego and Hadel, you're doing a pretty good job on defense, too. I've got to go with Cincinnati, too.
Can't catch you if you keep picking the same teams I do.
Pat, you love the Bay Area. San Francisco entertaining the Kansas City Chiefs. What about this big game?
I like the Bay Area team, too, so I'll pick the 49ers, although the Chiefs have super personnel.
I'll go with Kansas City, so we do at least run across one another on that one.
Okay, at any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happened. I'm Pat Summerall.
And I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.
Promotional consideration for ground transportation provided by Budget Rent-A-Car, who rents the Buick Opal and other fine cars. This Week in Pro Football has been brought to you by the 1972 Buick, something to believe in. And by Hager, the Slacks people. We make everybody look good. This program has been a color feature presentation on the Hughes Sports Network.